Yeah. Okay. Something I wanted to mention is I don't think we'll need to meet on Wednesday, as I'll introduce the assignment and there won't be a required meeting time. However, I will be here at the same time. And so if you have questions in regards to your assignment or caricature or drawing in general, I'll be here to help you, but it won't be a required. Could you send photos of finished examples of the last assignment? I have a few that I have done, but nothing that's really finished. We're trying to see, we're trying to move forward with Wednesdays, not necessarily being required, but after this week, we only have one more assignment left, one more module that we're working into. So after this week, we're going into the self-portrait final. What you're going to be doing for that self-portrait is you're going to, can you guys hear me or am I getting lost? Yeah, you're fine. So for the self-portrait, what I want you to do is to take a photo of yourself. You're going to be rendering it in full value. And you can use any of the techniques we've done in the class so far. So you can do oil buildup. You can do Canson, white pencil and black pencil. You can do a halftone lift out. You can do these visual components or even caricature if you prefer after we go through it today. But the end result, we're going to actually work on, I want you to take the photos, start trying to take photos of yourself now. And then we're going to start working on the drawing and it will be due next, well, not next Wednesday, the Wednesday after next on the, I believe it's the 6th. Or no, that's a Monday. It's the 8th. Yeah. Question? Yeah.
What if we've already if we have a decent photo that was shot well, could we maybe email it, see if that'd work? Or
yeah, that's fine. What I'm hoping is that you'll take your self-portrait references and send them to me as soon as you get them, and I can approve them. And this can be, if you have one that's shot before, you've done it for your wedding or whatever it is, I don't know. But yeah, you can definitely send those over and I'll approve them going forward that way. Yep. Any other questions? Moving forward. Okay. And India, I'll try to scrounge up some finished examples for that visual component drawing. How do you, what's your question there, Zachary? Does the view of your photo matter? Is that like the positioning of your head? Is that what you're referring to? Yeah, you would want to have something that's going to be, that's going to show that it's you, but you can do a profile, 3/4 or frontal. That's up to you in terms of that. But I do want to see good amount of light and shadow, and you can think about adding a background as well, compositionally, to add background elements or things like this. But really, the positioning doesn't matter as much as it's a good photo. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward. We have, if you have any more questions, please just enter them into the chat and I'll try to see them and get to them. But I'm going to go ahead and switch over here to my little presentation today. Oh, we got somebody else coming in. I already had Bryn. Came in. Someone. Anyway, let's go ahead and switch over. And I'm gonna come here, share. Okay, so for caricature, this is really a crash course into caricature. I, as a student, became enamored with caricature pretty early on when I was in school, and it became something that I really gravitated towards and really liked doing. So the ideas I'm going to express today are kind of an entry point to it. It really deserves an entire semester itself, but we're going to talk about some of the essential ideas to making caricature today. This is kind of where I believe it started to originate. this is the artist T.S. Sullivan. And he was an illustrator in the late 1800s. He was born in 1854 and died in 1920. But you can look at, and there's a lot of examples online. If you type in T.S. Sullivan, you'll find, illustrations where he caricaturized animals and different types of characters. And I found it to be so awesome. I studied this in like a survey course for illustration in my master's program. And he came up, and in fact, Walt Disney and a lot of these animators looked to T.S. Sullivan as like kind of the originator. You look at a lot of his ways he caricaturized animals, and it was like the birthplace of, Disney style and things like this. But what we're seeing is it's definitely a camel. But the thing is, it's been exaggerated for all of its lumps and bumps, and it looks really, really interesting and like a character of a camel rather than, a rendering of a camel, which I think is fantastic. Going on, I want to show you a few more examples of people that have caricaturized throughout the years. This is Norman Rockwell. If we look at Norman Rockwell here, he tried to get that, that tween, prepubescent, teen, young boy looking thing. And so you can see how much he's caricaturized and exaggerated the characteristics of these boys to get the story across. You can see how long these legs have become and how, skinny their arms are. It's really, really funny. And I think, it's a really great storytelling tool. And Norman Rockwell was famous for using this all the time. Other illustrators like J.C. Leyendecker, man, this guy is so stinking good. It's disheartening how good he is. But if you look at it, he caricaturized this woman. He went after style. So he wasn't about necessarily caricaturizing a specific person, but it was more about bringing out some sort of aesthetic or appeal to how he was drawing. So in this case, he made women, more elegant by stretching out their necks, adding like 2 or 3 vertebrae. He made fingers super long. He made babies really chubby and their heads really round and dome-like. And he was essentially looking at the characters and trying to play up their characteristics. Look at how chubby that baby's arm is, even though it's behind the cage. Look how chubby it is, and those little sausage fingers, man. You look at that, and then you can tell that they've been like blown up by like balloons to make them more chubby and more funny. This is Barbara. Oh, I can't remember her last name all of a sudden. But she is another early illustrator who, this is an advertisement for Dole Pineapple. But you can see how she's played up the character, or she's caricaturized what she thinks is a little kid, an islander in this case, and played up those characteristics. You can just see, similar to J.C. Leyendecker, look at these ankles. I mean, and this leg. Oh my goodness, that is so cute. I can't help it. It's just so lumpy and fat, and it's so awesome that when we see that, we start to get an idea that she's taking shapes that do exist in life and exaggerating them for an aesthetic. So these are some of the caricatures I did as a student for my BFA. And you can see in this case, this was one, and I'll show you the finished product later, but in which I took Snoop Dogg and I tried to play up some of his characteristics. In this way, I've stretched out his face, made his eyes even squintier, and, played up straights pretty much everywhere on this one. So I'm playing up a characteristic here. Here's another one from back when I was a student. It looks a little washed out. I think I uploaded the wrong file format, but Anne Hathaway from Les Mis, pretty fun. Give her gigantic elf-like eyes and a really long neck. J.C. Leyendecker influence. I thought it was pretty fun. Another one from when I was a student, Hillary Clinton. In this case, this was like during the Benghazi trial, and so I had to get reference of my wife, and then I made it really short, and then I used a Hillary reference and kind of played it up. I thought it was pretty funny to make her look really short. She does have surprisingly short legs. If you ever see her walking anywhere, you can go watch and you can really see that. There's another one, Barack Obama. During during his administration, he kind of went after the Second Amendment. So I have him burning the Second Amendment and the head of the NRA getting mad about it in the back. And that's Joe Biden. This is a Frank Frazetta influenced poster. I thought it was pretty funny. And the finished result was, I kind of made them into magazine covers and just had a lot of fun with it. So this is kind of what you get. So caricature for me at that time was a means to find artistic expression. It's funny, it really is, but it can be a tool for you to exaggerate or to bring things out in your character, to give it a little more story and to make things just a little bit stronger. Yeah, Zachary says Cankles. Yeah, that was for that little play. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so how do we do it? How do we caricaturize? How do we do this kind of stuff? It all comes down to exaggeration. Everything that we're doing is we're trying to not only pay close attention to our model or to our reference or whatever it is we're looking at, whether it be a camel, a person's face or person's body, anything like this. What we're trying to do is pay careful attention to what makes these people different from everyone else and exaggerate those qualities that make them different. The way it's explained to me is that if we have a cube, in this case, cube A, and it will serve as our standard. It will be, the quintessential cube. Just, it's perfect, and we're going to judge all other cubes based off of this cube. If I add another cube, cube B, we can tell that cube B is slightly taller, right? Slightly taller than cube A. And that's just a dimension. It's just taller than cube A and so then if I were to do a caricature of cube B in relation to cube A, it would result in cube C, meaning that because cube B is different from cube A by the fact that it's taller, when I want to caricaturize it, I make it even taller. You see how that works? That's the quintessential idea. We're trying to pay attention to the differences and exaggerate how someone is unique or different in that way. So our standard will be the Andrew Loomis head. The really cool thing is most people's proportions are the same in terms of the division of their face, but not everybody looks like a white Caucasian male from the 50s is the problem. That's when this was created, and it's like, well, okay. But with that being said, it can be a really nice standard. The things that we want to pay attention to here are the thirds of the face. So, the chin to nose is equal to the nose to brow, the brow and the nose to brow is equal to the brow to a roughly hairline. If we can observe the thirds of the face and we can tell in someone's face that a third is smaller than the other thirds or a third is larger than the other thirds, that can be our cube B. So let's say we found somebody with a larger forehead. Well, then I'm going to exaggerate that forehead and make it even taller. And then I'll make the others shorter. We can also look at the division of space, the nose being equal to an eye width. A rectangle. Yeah, okay, I get it. Okay, yeah, whatever. Rectangle, square, whatever. Looking at the head, though, we want to pay attention to that nose division of by an eye between our eyes. We want to have the mouth falling, the bottom lip falling halfway between the chin and nose. Any of these standard proportions are really good to be a rough judge at the beginning of our caricature. And this is something that we're going to play with. I'm going to show you here in a little bit. Another thing we can consider are people's actual features. Now, this is really important because you'll find that most people are pretty consistent in terms of their thirds and division. But where people start to deviate is in the particular shape of their features. If we look here at these eyes, we can see that the eyes have been slightly downturned at the outside. It looks even, but compared to a normal or an average eye, I should say, not normal, average eye, it's a little bit higher. And then if you go the opposite way and I tilt it towards the inside and the outside comes up, then that eye will become what is affectionately referred to as cat-eyed, where it's the opposite direction. So paying attention to the orientation of people's eyes can instantly give you something to caricature. Now looking at these eyes, they aren't quite downturned, but what we really see is this lower lid just scoops down much further than is than is the average right here. Okay, if we look at like somebody like Barbara Streisand on the bottom here, you can see her nose is very unique. You know, given you know the average human head, she's got a very large nasal bone and very large first cartilage, and then her septum here on the bottom is also very large. So what I can play up is if I find that characteristic of somebody, I can play that up as well. So I'll make it the bump even more bumped. I'll make the, you know, the septum even larger. And this is, you know, and I can do this for any feature: lips, ears, eyes, eyebrows, hairline, anything that I can find that's a little bit different than the average, I will play up. So the basic idea here, though, to keep in mind is we can't just blow up everything and hope for the best. Jacob, that kind of scared me. I saw a little baby in the. But what we want to think of is the head is like a balloon. When we look at a balloon, we can squeeze it, right? Like balloon animals. We can squeeze the bottom and the top gets bigger. We can squeeze the top and the bottom gets bigger. And we'll do this with caricature, in that if we find that there's an expressive quality like Barbara Streisand's nose that we want to make larger and come out bigger, the rest of the head, like a balloon, is to inflate the nose, we have to squeeze down everything else. If I find a large forehead, I'm squeezing the proportions on the lower half to make the bigger half come out larger. And so this is the idea. We're squeezing a balloon into those features that we want to be more exaggerated and downplaying those things that we don't want to be exaggerated. Is it still zoomed in? Oh, okay. Let's go on. Another thing to consider is face shape. Okay, so I can look for somebody's outer face versus their inner face. Sometimes when I look at somebody, they might have a really round face. Sometimes when I look at somebody, they might have a really square face. Diamond, oval, all these kind of, you know, different types of shapes, but essentially I don't have to blow anything up. I can just accentuate what's already there. So I can make a square face squarer. I can make an oval face more oval. I can make a round face even rounder. And by doing these things or paying attention to these things, we can start getting a caricature in this way. Here's one of an inner face versus outer face. This is a sumo wrestler. And you look at his face and he has a very large outer face in relationship to his inner face. So if I wanted to caricaturize this in a simple way, I can just play up the outer face in relationship to the inner face. And what I've done is I've exaggerated his face and I've brought up that quality. So now it's, yeah, it's very handsome. But it's just that much of a difference can give me a caricature. And I can play that up by degrees. I can go just slightly more, or I can exaggerate it a lot more. And the trick here is to caricaturize somebody, but not to make it super obvious. That's my aesthetic, what I try to go for. Do it a little bit, but not so much that it's like, okay, I get it. But you can go, you can exaggerate as far as you like. You can make this guy have a really tiny inner face and a really huge outer face. That can be really, really great thing to move forward with. Okay. Let's look at a couple examples of caricatures I really, really like. This is Xi Ding. It's spelled X-I and then D-I-N-G. He's a caricature artist that I've been following for a number of years. But when we look at his caricatures, he does these live and he does them in about a minute to 2 minutes. But you can see, looking at this woman, which I really like, is you can see what he was looking at compared to his drawing. But he's played up the characteristics of her face. A larger forehead. Her hairstyle was pretty unique. He played up that unique hairstyle. He downplayed her chin, right? In relationship to the forehead, this is the balloon idea. He squished the lower face and grew the upper half of her head. And so when we see this together, we start to come up with a way. Look at her neck. he really stretched that out and made it even longer, which I think is fantastic. Here's another Zeding, and here you can see the difference to the last one. You can see he was using curves, a lot of curves everywhere to compose. She's female and she's got softer features, but in the male, he used a lot more straights. And you can see that he gets a much more masculine appeal when he does this. Now, there are curves in there, but you can see how he's played it up. A very unique nose. He played up that nose. He's got a square jaw and chin, just played up those characteristics that are unique. He's got some mad eyebrow game, you know, that is some awesome, and wow, mad eyebrow game in the drawing. So meaning that they were made bigger, you know. Anyway, it's really, really interesting and fun to see. Here's some more Zeding. This is would be a more finished drawing, but you know, just moving forward, you can just see the characteristics that are played up. Look at the size of this nose. I mean, come on, this is ridiculous, but it's so ridiculous, but I don't question it because it's accurate to the model in the reference. This is, I think, a self-portrait of Zeding, but again, you can see he's played up everything: nose, eyes, mouth, and he's played with the visual components of going from straights to curves, and he gets some really interesting handling. It is, it's pretty awesome, I think. Here's another one. Wonderful. We have two past presidents. We have really tall, really skinny. And so in this case, the idea is I'm playing up tall and skinny and short and round to play up the characteristics of these two men. We can also see, you know, even in these characteristics, look at the ears of Obama, his nose. These are very characteristic aspects of what's quintessential to Barack Obama, and he played it up in a really, really interesting way. You can see the inner face versus the outer face down here, and you can see how wide things have gotten. I think it's pretty awesome. And how square, look how square the head is. That's really quite interesting to me. So what I'm going to introduce you to your assignment and show you a little bit of how I might approach the assignment and approach moving forward here. So let me go ahead and switch screens to my there we go. Okay, there we go. I did see, let's see, Hannah. I just saw Hannah in there. I want to make sure, don't leave too early so I can get you before we go. We have a little bit of time left here to talk about some of these ideas. But so what I want you to do this week is to find or take reference to use. So you can caricaturize a celebrity if you like. That means that you're going to search the web and try to find several references of the same celebrity. To do that, you know, you can like look up somebody like Barack Obama. I'm going to search it on Google Images, and I'm going to find as many positions of his head as possible. What will happen is I'll understand his nose so much better if I view it from the front, the side, the bottom, as many angles as I can get. That way I'm going to get an understanding of what his nose is, his ears, his lips. The more angles you get, the more you can explore. One reference is good, multiple is better, so you can select and then understand a little bit better what's going on. You can also do a loved one or a friend. Oh, questions? Let me see. Oh, sorry. Okay, let me see. Oh, sorry, yeah. Just line drawings. No, I want these to be full value in the end. I want there to be a full light and shadow statement. I want you to exaggerate, and what this is going to make you do is not only pay attention to the features themselves in terms of line drawing, but it's going to make you pay attention to the shadow shapes as well. They're going to be very specific, and you're going to have to pay really close attention to that. No, not everybody has to know the celebrity, but I would appreciate if you would turn in your references with your final caricature. That way I know who it is and I can give you feedback based on your caricature. I'm doing Putin. Okay, very good. There's a lot of, Putin's really an interesting looking guy. It'll be fun. for this one, I kind of want to open the door a little bit as well. I'm just now making an executive decision. I would like you to be drawing, but if you prefer to try this digitally, or you want to try this in pen and ink, or you want to try this in oil paint, whatever you want to try, I'm going to encourage you to give that a go. So if you like charcoal, you like graphite, you like watercolor, whatever you like, I want you to go ahead and try that. You can also use this to inform how you're going to do your final project. So if you're thinking of doing a charcoal drawing for your final, or you want to do a watercolor, or whatever you want to do for your final, use this as an experimentation. Yeah, and I want you to have fun doing this. Just because, I know times are crazy, but the real emphasis here is on, playing with caricature and trying to decide on how to do it. It is going to be a challenge though. And so to show you this, I want to introduce you to how I want you to actually accomplish this. You will have multiple references, but you're going to end up deciding on one. And art is fun. Yeah. But what I want is there's going to be two parts to this assignment. The first part is you're going to be looking at the head, and you're going to be trying to understand how to caricaturize it through 3 preliminary sketches. And I'm going to show you how I do that here in a second. And then you're going to have one finished head drawing to turn in at the end. Yeah, you can do that for sure, Masha. Yeah, so Masha asked, can we do the line drawing traditionally and then add value digitally? Go right ahead. Yeah, that can be a wonderful thing to move forward with. And if you feel comfortable with that, do it. So let's look at this. So we have this guy's head. And there's a number of things I would do at the beginning. I'll take a mental notes of how this guy is slightly different from the average head, in my opinion. Some things I'll note at the beginning is he's got kind of an oval shape to his face. He's got a larger forehead. Okay. He's got deeper sockets. He's got really deep eye sockets. His nose is slightly wider. And since I'm taking the forehead up, I'm going to say that I'm going to move his mouth and chin up as well, something like this. So I'm going to play up the forehead and his awesome hair on the top of his head, something like this. Play down his chin a little bit more. Get the neck, something like this. So this would be an initial kind of idea gathering sketches. And I want you to do several of these, or 3 of these to start, but you can do more. And the idea here is I'll try one series of ideas. So in this one, I'll take a little bit more time and I'll flesh it out a little bit further. And this is what I would like you to do as well, is not just, don't just scribble everything down. Take some time and do a limited, drawing. They don't necessarily need to be full value, but we do want to see sort of it realized here. And by realized, I mean a little bit, pushed a little bit further. So this would be like one idea that I might play up with this guy. Cheekbone cuts way back in. Yeah, so for the assignment, if you go onto the Canvas and you read the directions of the assignment, part of the assignment is the initial sketches. Sort of like what I'm doing now, where I'm just kind of playing around and trying to see what makes this guy who he is, at least by degree. I don't know. I don't know if it's really working. This is just like, and you can see it's like, it doesn't really look like him so much. But I'm trying to play up and see how it's different now. I really messed up on the tilt of his head. really messed up on the placement, but this would be one idea that I could start moving forward. Another one I could play up is, I think in terms of his inner face versus his outer face, that's where I think it kind of went awry right here. This eye got a little big, don't really like it so much. So instead I might start in a different way, or I might draw his head, and now I'll make a big forehead, but I'll make his inner face smaller. Find his nose, find his mouth, and his chin. Socket, socket. A little bit wider nose here. Now I'm going to give him an even bigger forehead and a bigger outer face. I started feeling a little bit like his outer face needed to be bigger here. So again, I feel like this one's starting to feel a little bit closer to him than this one did. And so I'm starting to think that exaggerating the outer face can be a little bit better. I went 3 at minimum, 3 sketches like this minimum to start. And normally with the caricatures you saw I did of Hillary and Barack and do all these kind of things, you'll want to do, I did like 20 to start on each of those heads, just so I can understand what's happening. It's one thing to sit down and do characters really quickly, like for an event or something like this. And quite frankly, I think they're pretty bad in terms, I get into formula when I do those kind of events, and it's just like, whatever, just turn out heads. And but to really caricaturize, you'll want to get a likeness, and you'll want to get a believability out of the head, but still have fun playing up the features and exaggerating in all kinds of ways. So to me, this is starting to feel a little bit more like him. Might have gone a little bit crazy on the forehead there. So this starts to feel a little bit closer to this guy. But yeah, I went a little bit high. So I would do another one, and I would exaggerate it in a different way. Maybe I'll make the forehead a little bit smaller, and I'll blow out the balloon this way a little bit further, right? And so I'm gonna start saying, okay, this starts to feel good. Let's see if we play it this way and we play it down this way, and just see what happens. Maybe, and this is just one way to caricature. Let's look at another one, just to give you an idea. We have Devin. If any of you know Devin, he's been around a while. He's pretty funny, but he's got really unique features that I think is pretty awesome. Looking at Devin here, I noticed that he's got a really long face. He's just a tall guy. He's got a really long face, and the shape of it is larger on the top and narrower at the bottom. Okay. I also noticed that he's got larger ears. Okay. And I also noticed that he's got a larger forehead. It's similar to like a Barack Obama. He's got a really skinny nose though. And he's got a smaller mouth. So playing up Devin, by taking into consideration these, and maybe a really kind of long neck, taking into consideration these features, this will give me a guide as to how to caricaturize Devin in this regard. Does that make sense? I took into consideration the shape of his head, the breakup of his thirds, any distinguishing features like a skinny nose and larger ears, long neck, and this will be a guide to me pretty well. Let's look at another one. We'll go with this girl. If I look at this girl, I just see, very first off, an oval like this. To me, this head, and if anything, it becomes like a flattened oval. Maybe a shape more like a pill rather than a true oval. I also see that there's a larger forehead. Let's make it a larger forehead. And smaller eyes. A longer nose. And a smaller upper lip and a larger bottom lip. Okay. And then I can get, her hair and do whatever. But in this way, I'm making little notes And doing these kind of observational drawings will give me a guide to how to stretch and skew, like the face is like taffy or balloon. I'm squishing it together so it extends this way or however. Does that make sense? Are there any questions about what we're trying to do with this? Any questions?
So you're basically just giving us permission to play.
Yes, exactly. I'll say the trick though here is that it's playing within reason, meaning you still have to pay close attention to the shapes, the arrangement of shapes. You can't just do whatever you want because you won't get a likeness. You have to pay close attention to what makes somebody unique and try your best to play those up. That's where the sketches come in. Do several of them so you can understand them a little bit better. And then also, you know, with shadow shapes, when you go full value, you're going to have to try to make those shapes exactly right. So as much as it's fun, this is an exercise to get you to pay close attention to what you're doing. I don't see that he looked typical to me. Oh, okay, very good. Okay, so let me show you one more idea here. And this will be good for you. Some of you will look at people's faces and you'll say, I don't see a difference. Looks rather typical or average, or however you want to say it. So often when I look at somebody, I will often, and it's better if I have them in the same position, but if I put two people next to each other, and these guys actually look really similar. Let's grab two guys that look a little bit different. Okay, so when I put two people that are, and ideally I'd have them in the same position, but I can say, wow, his nose is much wider than his nose. Okay, his face is more round in its construction than maybe Devin's jaw. Okay, his ears are smaller than Devin's and stick closer to the head. In terms of the deepness of the socket, this guy has a very deep socket, and Devin doesn't have as deep of a socket. And so often when I'm struggling to caricaturize, I'll often pull up two references of two different looking people, and I'll say, wow, how are these different? I'll grab two others here. Let's say this girl and this girl. And in fact, I wonder if I have any of the same. This might be better. So we look, and her face is far more pointed at the chin. Hers is a little bit rounder. If I look at, you know, she has a fuller upper lip, and she has a smaller upper lip. If I look at the shape of the nose, it's rounder in the ball of the nose, and this is a little more pointed. If I look at her sockets, these are deeper than these sockets. Hers sit closer to the front. If I look at her forehead's much larger than her forehead, right? And so as I start looking back and forth, let's look at the shape of the eyes. Hers are a little bit more closed than her eyes. I can see far more of her iris than I can here, right? And so in that way, you can start to point out differences between them. Let me see. I saw some question. Yeah, he kind of does look like Brother Mehmet. That's pretty funny. Does that make sense? I think that was Bryn. Yeah, Bryn, does that make sense to you? A little bit of how you can go forward?
It makes a little more sense.
Yeah, it's the difficult thing here is most of you have been drawing heads for a semester, not a ton of drawing heads, but what you'll start to find is when I look at Devin, you know, I automatically just think like, because I've seen so many heads, I know he's different than a round face. I know he's different than other types of face because I've seen so many. And I've drawn so many that I can just spot those differences. But for you, that's what I would do. Grab another reference, see how they're different, and work it up that way. Let's see. Oh, don't worry. I have your drawings from the beginning of the semester. I don't know how to get them back to you. I think on the last day, I'm going to take pictures of them and I'm going to put them up here and we're going to talk about them in relationship to your final and we'll take a look. I think it'll be quite revealing. I'll receive the ashes. Okay. Well, anyway, are there any other questions in regards to caricature that I can answer for you? These are all really good questions, and I want you to have, any doubts answered. Yeah, I know what you meant. I'm just kidding. Yeah. Nothing? Yes, your last assignments are in the flat file in the drawing room. It's the one up against the wall by the creepy heads, the model heads. If you go in there, it's the top drawer. If you open that, your drawings are in there. And then if you aren't here, I'm going to have those next semester, so you can hunt me down and I can return them to you. Well, I don't know if we'll even be here next semester. I will be in Rexburg. I don't know what's happening with next semester yet, but anyway, I'll be around and have those. I'll keep them safe. I do have some other drawings as well from past assignments, so if you're missing any, make sure you get those. I want to make sure you get your drawings. Yeah, and I can take them and put them in the art office if that's what you prefer. They're just there in the flat file though, if before I get there. So yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Questions? Will you still be doing oil painting next semester? Yes. I am currently writing oil painting for next semester to be a completely online class. I took an entire master's program, a painting master's program online, and so I feel pretty good about my understanding of running an online class in terms of the curriculum, but we'll see. Yeah, that's right. So on Wednesday, you don't have to show up on Wednesday. On Wednesday, I'll be in here and I'll be able to answer questions if you have any. And so I'll be hanging out. So if you've done some caricatures and you want to come by and show them to me and I can give you some quick feedback before you go into the final, I think that would be great. And then, so this Wednesday, you have your visual component assignment due. So don't forget to turn those in. I'd love to give you feedback on those in a draw over. And then next week on, well, let's make it Wednesday as well. We'll make the due date for these caricatures Wednesday as well. But we will meet on Monday to talk about the self-portraits and to kind of go over them a little bit there. And then we'll talk a little bit about composition to give you something to learn a little bit more about. Does that answer the question? So we'll make the caricatures. We'll have 3 preliminary sketches minimum and a final full value caricature drawing by next Wednesday. And then this Wednesday, we have a visual component drawing due. Okay. Oh yeah, I love you guys too. Oh, this is so nice. Look at us. This class is so good. I hope as a class you're still getting what you need. I felt bad, that the class had to end this way, but needless to say, we will be moving forward as best we can. Let me know if you have any specific questions, and I'd love to answer for you. But yeah, only one finished caricature drawing. That's right. And then also, don't forget, start trying to take your self-portrait photos to be approved. So that can be a pre-existing photo of you or one that you take now. Just make sure there's a good amount of light and shadow, and you can begin exploring the techniques that you want to do to finish it off. Okay, so if there aren't any other questions, I think that'll be good for today. So I've recorded this. I'll be sending it out. If you have questions, you'll be able to watch it again if you need it. And yeah, I will see you guys next week. Or if you come on Wednesday, I'll see you Wednesday. Make sense? Okay. Thank you. And we'll see you around. Bye.